everyone, welcome back to the Refine Co channel. I'm Marta Locklear, and today we're diving into something that's going to change the way you finish your edits forever. If you're a professional photographer tired of spending hours hand tweaking masks in Adobe Lightroom just to fix skin tones, recover skies, deepen hair, or add that final creative push, we've got game-changing news for you. Introducing today the Refine Co AI Toolbox, our brand new collection of 50 plus handcrafted AI masking presets built right on top of Adobe Lightroom's powerful AI masking technology. These aren't generic auto adjustments. Every single one of these 50 plus tools was meticulously developed by pro photographer for pro photographers to act as intelligent finishers that target exactly what needs refinement in one click. So the first thing I want to do is run you through all of the tools that are inside of the collection. So here's our AI toolbox, and it starts with creative. So we have blush, which adds a nice slight pink tone to the entire image. It works great on those beautiful white beaches, an image where you just have a lot of extra green and need to add some contrasting pink. That cream, same thing, just adds a little bit of a cream tone. Enrichen just brightens up the colors of the entire image. Faded dark gives you a little bit of a vintage feel, a little bit of a darker, moodier vibe. Milk softens the overall image, just gives it a very light and airy, a little bit ethereal image, fully adjustable. Faded milk background only, BG is background only. That's great when you just need to lighten and soften the background tones. Maybe you've got a lot of extra contrast, or you're doing a beach, or you're doing a newborn on a white blanket and you just want to kind of feather out that background a little. That one's great. Old film just adds a bit of grain, lifted black points and everything in the deep black areas and gives you a little bit of that vintage film look. And then old film for black and white. So that's just for black and white images. Portrait. So we have an all-in-one. All-in-one really includes eye rich, eye white, skin retouch, skin glow, and that just gives you an all-in-one, one click. So if you know you're going to use those all the time, that's good for like if you're doing portraits, senior portraits, things like that. Eyes rich will lift the color in the irises. Eyes white lifts the white part of the eye, obviously. Facial hair deepen. Sometimes when we overexpose or lift our exposure, we lose depth in the hair tones of the face and hair. Facial hair, this deepens it, and vice versa. We have a lighten feature. Same thing with hair. Sometimes you just need to deepen the hair or lighten it. That gives you the option there. Hair X Blue takes the blue tones out of the hair. Sometimes we get that reflective sky in the highlights of the blue, of the hair, especially in dark hair. And this removes that for you specifically. Lip Rich just brings out the extra color in the lips. Really good if you have pale lips, or you really just want to liven up a color a little bit, or it gets washed out in exposing. Skin Deepen just adds a little bit of depth into the skin. This is good for when someone is getting washed out with the lighting, or same thing, exposure. It just gives you a little extra. Skin Glow, little extra luminosity in the skin, just highlights the highlighted areas. Skin Green Cast does just that, takes out a little bit of that green cast out of the skin. This can be a tricky one. Sometimes there's an enormous amount of cast, and this will not completely kill it all. But it works really well when you have just that light kind of dull skin tone that comes from yellows and greens. We also have a yellow one down here as well. Skin Less Red is great for those people that have blotchy red skin, or reds are just pulling a little harder for some reason in a specific photo. It helps reduce it without completely cutting out the red. It just softens it so it's not as visible. Works really well in newborns and in elderly people that tend to have a little more of that rosacea or redness in their skin. Skin Soften Spray Tan. I missed Retouch. Skin Retouch just softens the skin tones, blurs out blemishes a little bit, still keeps it very natural. Fully adjustable though as well. Skin Soften Spray Tan. We're seeing less and less of this these days, but for you wedding photographers and senior photographers, for those girlies that like their spray tans, it can lean pretty orange. This neutralizes a little bit and just takes that extra orange saturation out. Skin Neon Skin. This is for those glowing ears, glowing fingers, anything that the light is catching and making that vibrant orange red tone that you see in like ears, especially on men because they usually don't have long hair, or babies and children. This helps reduce that. It doesn't take it out 100%. Because that would look unnatural, but this actually just reduces it and makes it a little less obvious. yellow skin cast, I already mentioned that one, and teeth white does just that. It just kind of lightens the teeth a little bit, but you want to use this delicately. Overly white teeth just look fake. Subject, going into the subject, we have clean blacks. Everybody's been asking for this, so I think this is going to be a very popular one. So when you have, and you've seen this image here, the blue tones sometimes can come from the presets. When we add a film-based preset that has some color shift to it, in the shadows especially, we can get that blue tone in suits. But here you can see no preset has been added. We have a little bit of that blue tone. The lapel is reflective. It picks up the skylight. So the blue is reflecting on the reflective part of his suit, also in his whites here in the shadows, her dress. So we have a clean blacks, which will clean up the black point. I'll be showing you all of these. And a clean white will actually pull these blue tones out of the whites as well. Color Plus does just that. It just increases the color a little bit of saturation and vibrancy. Subject Cool, sometimes you have dual white balances. Your subject is warm, your background is cool, or vice versa. Background is warm, subject is cool. So we have made ones where you can adjust just the subject and tweak it. Subject Darken, just self-explanatory, darkens them up if they get too light for some reason, and changing the exposure. Subject Dehaze, this is great when you have those backlit images that can get a little foggy or a little hazy, and you need to kind of cut through that haze a little bit. Maybe it just went a little too far, or you just want to crisp things up a little. This will do that for you. Subject Green Cast, this is on the entire subject, so it'll take care of clothing and skin, so not just skin like up here in the top. Subject Highlight Recover, recovers those whites. Say like right here where we feel a tiny bit blown out, but this is a well exposed image, but the sun is hitting right. You can see it's kind of sneaking in here. So that'll help fix that area there. Subject Lighten, same thing. Maybe you have a dark background or dark subject that's backlit. You need to lighten the subject up. This is a quick way to do that, and where it will only do the subject versus the entire image. And Subject Warm, we talked about it with Subject Cool. Sky and Land, we have several green versions. Green's cool, just to cool those greens down if they're ultra warm and you want them to have a little bit of that cool cyan blue green. Green's minty, pulls a little desaturation out for those that like that kind of really soft, almost pastel-y greens. Green's warm, warms up the cool greens. And green's neon. Every once in a while you get those shoots, and you can see this one right here, where the greens just glow in the full sun, and this helps reduce that naturally. So it's not, you'll still have a bit of that bright. You'll still feel like it's a full sun moment, but it just takes that extra neon tone out. Skies, we have Blue Hour, which gives you, that nice kind of like deepened blue area. Skies Candy is for those beach scenes where you have kind of cotton candy skies and you want to really enhance them or bring out some color in the sky. This will add in a little bit of magentas and those blues and a little bit of saturation there. Skies Darken does just that. Darkens the skies, which is similar to Recover. Darken will work across the board. Recover really brings in the highlights and everything when it's overexposed or blown out. Sometimes you can't fix a full blown out sky, but it will really bring in those ones when we've had to lift the exposure and the sky tends to get really blow out. This helps recover that as well. And then Golden Hour just adds a little extra warmth and yumminess into a golden hour sky. Last but not least, we have Background. Background Cool, like I said, when you have those dual white balances where your background is warm and your subject is cool and you want to cool down the background a little. You've adjusted your white balance to be somewhat neutral, but you still feel like they're not playing in the same white balance tones. This gives you the option to do that. And of course, we have a warm version as well. Background Darken, sometimes your background just needs a little extra depth. That'll give you that. Background Dehaze, just like the subject dehaze, that will cut through any of that fuzziness, the hazing from backlighting or sun flares and things like that. It'll help minimize them a little bit. Background Highlight Recover, if you've got those bright white spots somewhere in your environment, whether it's reflective stone or water, things like that, this will bring in those highlights and just soften them down a little bit. And then of course, Background Lighten. Now that's all the presets. It's a ton of them. I know it's a lot, but let's just go ahead and start editing. You can skip around if you like through the video from this point if there's certain images that you want to see, but I'm going to go through them all and show you how these tools work throughout them. Some images need a handful of them, some of them might just need one, and show you how these really work on these images. Let's get started with this image. The first thing you're going to do is select your image. And then you're going to run your favorite Refine Co preset. These AI tools work on all of our preset collections, and even if you had to hand edit an image, they should work on that as well. I'm going to use a preset that we are working on and should be coming out pretty soon. So I'm just going to run my preset, and I'm just going to use this one for everything to keep consistency across the board and not confuse everybody with a bunch of preset collections. I really wanted to show off the AI tools here, so I'm going to use this one, and it's a nice, clean, easygoing preset. So you run your preset, adjust white balance to taste, do your normal basic edits. So I'm going to start from there. Now let's go ahead and look in and see what we would add to this image. So she really doesn't need a skin retouch, but I want to show it off here. So I'm going to add that. You can see it's delicate. She still has her pink cheeks. She still has her lips. You can still see her freckles and minor blemishes, but it really kind of softened her skin up a lot. And you have full adjustability there, so you can do less or more as needed. I don't recommend this, a little too plasticky, so I think somewhere in the middle is ideal. She's got beautiful eyes. I would love to see them pop a little more. So we're gonna go in and use Eyes Rich. And again, you can adjust that and lighten it as you like. Eyes white, maybe just a little. I'm gonna turn that down just a hair. You don't want her eyes glowing. I'm going to show you Lip Rich. She really doesn't need it here, but you can see how it just lifts that color. Sometimes lips can get washed out, and that really does give just a little boost on them. Let's try Hair Deepen. You can see how it just immediately deepens just the hair. She doesn't absolutely need that here, but sometimes that hair can get a little light or dark, and we have Hair Deepen and Hair Lighten, but I wanted to show you how it works. The other thing I would do here is her shirt is slightly blown out. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the subject section, and I'm going to do Highlight Recover, and you can see how that instantly just grabs that shirt and fix the highlights, and then you adjust it from there. I would not go full gray. You want to have some depth and tone, but you want to cut that little bit of bright white out as much as possible. Honestly, I could stop here. But I want to show you, I feel like these greens are a little blue-green. I'd like them to be just a hint warmer. So I'm going to go into my greens, and I'm going to click on Greens Warm. And you can see how it just grabbed the greens, and it just warmed them up a little. You can really see it in these stalks here and a little bit here. And again, that is fully adjustable. You can see how that really just warms things up and gives a little more of that depth of various greens instead of them all looking one tone. So I really think that helps a lot. Let's move on to the next image. This is a beautiful image by Amy Huang. Love it, gorgeous. Again, great exposure, great white balance. I would maybe warm it up just a smidge. Let's run the preset. There we go. I'm actually going to pull just a tiny bit of contrast out of this. I just felt like it was a little, it's a contrasty image. And go somewhere in here. Gorgeous image. We can honestly stop here. For those that don't like a lot of color shift or tones or want to really finesse an image, this is what we're going to do. Let's start with the black. So we see how this blue, it kind of leans a little blue here in the reflective area. So let's do clean blacks. You see it immediately just pulls that out, and we have a nice crisp clean black with no blue color cast to it. I'm going to do the same for the whites. She doesn't have a lot on this dress, but I think it helped right in this area here and really just got rid of those blue shadows. Sometimes you want them. You don't want the image to look fake. You want it to feel natural, so maybe leaving a little bit in and just toning that down a little would be a good idea. I feel like they're warm. Her skin tone in general, I think we have a little bit of light creeping in, possibly reflective. I'm seeing a lot of orange in here, so maybe some brick or something is reflecting on her. So it's warmed them up nicely, but I feel like the greens in the background's a little cool. So I'm going to go down to my background section, and I'm going to warm it up. So I'm just going to do background warm, and you could leave it right there. That really warms it up nice, but I feel like I want somewhere in between. So there's where we started, and I'm just going to add it in to right about 50% of the actual AI tool. Let's say we want to do subject lighten. That's a little harsh, which is great for backlighting. This isn't quite backlit, but we just wanted to pump them up just a teeny bit to make them stand out against the background. That looks gorgeous. That's what we do. So clean whites, clean blacks. Really, they don't need a lot more on this image here. Let's go into a portrait. We have dual skin tones here, which is nice. It'll be great to show this off. I'm gonna warm it up a little, maybe take a little of that magenta out, start at a little magenta. There we go. Now we take a look at exposure. Somewhere in here would be nice. I'm going to pop this over here so you can see. So there's the preset. That's a gorgeous image. You really don't need to do a lot to this. But if you want to finesse it, maybe you're shooting for a magazine, or this is going in a gallery, like an album or on a gallery wall, and you want to really finesse this images, I always like to start with skin retouch. So we're going to do that first. And you see how that just really nicely smoothed out. She's got some texture in her skin here, even in the neck. You can still see her folds, but it's just a little softer. It just really smoothed things out and softened it up a little bit. I'm also going to do facial hair deepen. Not a lot. You can see that feels a little heavy. I'm actually just going to cut that in half and do somewhere in there. Let's go ahead. Let's just do lip rich for the sake of this. And you can see I would turn this down a little on this image specifically. Let me show you skin glow. You can see how it'll just add some luminosity to their skin. This is great. Actually, that looks really pretty. That really brought that to life. And again, adjustable. Let's darken the sky a little. So we're gonna go to sky and we're going to darken. And that's too much. So again, this is why we have the little slider. So you can just turn it down here. That way it's rich, a little richer, a little more blue, a little more color. But that looks stunning. You know, you can just go through all those there. We could do hair deepen if we wanted to, and that kind of deepens it up. I think that looks a little too much. So maybe we'll do that and just turn it down. So somewhere in there, it just adds a little more depth to the image. So there, they both look natural, but this one just looks a little more polished, a little more refined. Let's see here. So same thing. Let's go ahead and warm her up a little. There we go. Beautiful image by Katie Mary. The last one was also by Katie Mary. There we go. And actually, I think everything looks really good there. So I'm going to go there. I'm going to start there. And I feel like she's got a little bit of a yellow, slight green cast to her. I feel like she's looking a little gray here. I'd like to pink her up a little, but I think the rest of the greens and everything look gorgeous. So instead of adding more magenta, I'm going to do the green color cast on her skin. So I'm going to do this here. And you can see that just adds that little bit of extra warmth to her skin and cuts away some of that cast. And again, you can adjust that to taste right there. Let's go ahead and let's lift the background a little, just so I can show this off. Background lighten. There we go. And same thing, just adjust to taste. So we started here and maybe somewhere in here, so it doesn't feel like too deep in that back side there. And that looks stunning. Really wouldn't touch much more of that. Beautiful image by Danielle Rose. I think white balance, we're looking a little magenta, so I'm going to pull a little of this magenta out, maybe pull in a little warmth so we get that real golden hour type feel. Run the preset. This is where I don't want to lift the exposure too much, so I'm only lifting the exposure to the lightest part of the image, which happens to be the background. She's backlit, so she's a little darker. We're going to use our AI tools for that. So let's pop that over here. So this is just the preset. Now let's just go ahead and lighten her up. There we go. And again, you want to adjust this so it looks natural. We want some of that mood, but we don't want her feeling like she's in a black hole either. So we're going to go right about here. And I'm actually going to do subject cool as well, which will just tone down a little bit of that warmth on her. So we were here, she was really glowing, which we want that warmth, but we just don't want that much. So we're going to find that happy medium here. I'm going to go back to subject lighten because I feel like I want to lighten her a little more. So if you just click on your AI masking tool, you just go to subject and you can also slide them here. So you can see I can still lighten her up right in here. Same thing with subject cool. Maybe I want to cool her down a little more. So you can still adjust in there and go back to them if you need to tweak a little further. Let's go ahead and I want to darken the background just a little bit, not a lot. There we go. So we started here. I kind of want it right in here, and I think I want to warm it up as well. and really play with this golden hour. And this is where you can really get creative on your images. And there we are. So this is the preset, which is still beautiful, but now look at the image. And if we wanted to say skin glow to get that skin to pop just a little more, you can do that as well. Because she's not spray tanned, obviously, she's got gorgeous skin tone, but because of the lighting, everything's feeling a little orange. So let's just give the softened spray tan a little a try and see what that does for her. And it does tone that down a little bit. So we started here, and you can tone down a little bit of that orange. So she still feels like her skin tone, but it's not pulling orange in that sense. But there you go, beautiful image. Newborns, we have a lot of newborn photographers in here. This is by Danielle Hobbs. I'm going to go ahead and pull this exposure down just a little bit. Let's go ahead and run the preset. Again, looks gorgeous. I'm going to pop that over here and go ahead and get started. So let's start with a creative. We're going to do faded milk background only. Obviously this is beautifully shot. You really don't need it, but sometimes you just want to make it just even softer. And you can see how that just really softened up that background. And I'm going to show this to you on another image as well that's not just a white background. Let's highlight recover the subject to fix this little blanket that's a little blown out. There we go. Tone it down so it looks natural. Let's do skin retouch. Beautiful, great on those babies when they've got this blotchy skin. You can see it still looks natural. The baby does not look plastic, but it just really smoothed out those areas. And the other thing we want to work on is these red areas. So we have two options. We can try skin less red, but we can also try skin neon skin as well. Let's do less red and see. I think that's perfect actually. So here's where we started. And here's just with the preset. And then you can push it even further from there. So I would maybe push it to right in there. Still allows the depth and those tones to be there, but they're not, you know, bright and glowing. It also reduced the red in this area here on the baby. So everything looks really good. Still all looks natural. Everything's, you can literally still see the skin texture. Everything looks beautiful there. We can maybe bring this down just a smidge. Yeah, I think that looks gorgeous. A nice handsome groom here. Let's go ahead and warm it up. Pull a little of that magenta out. Pop this over. This is by Amy Huang. Run the preset. Lift the exposure. Looks great. I'm going to warm it up just a little more. And there's your preset. So a few things we see here. We might want to lighten the subject a little bit just to bring out some depth of this suit. So let's start there. And again, this one comes across a little harsh on some of these subtle images, mainly because I wanted it to be effective on backlit images as well. So I would maybe just do it somewhere in here, just a little boost just to bring out the details of his suit. We want to take care of this blue. Some people love it. It is a very film tone. So if you're going for film tones, you might not want to pull it out, but there's occasions that the blues just get a little too harsh and you need to fix them. So let's clean up the blacks. See how that immediate cleans it up? Maybe you want to keep a little of that tone. You can just find that happy medium and just turn it down a little. So you have a bit of that tone. Let's do subject, highlight, recover, fix that shirt. There we go. Still got the details there. We could clean up the whites here. They're not bothering me, but if you wanted to, you could clean them up. Let's try skin glow on him. Just a little pop in that skin. That looks really nice. It helped lighten him up a little bit. We could do hair lighten. You can see that just brought out the details in his hair. Again, you can adjust that. Let's try background lighten just to take a look at the tool. Too much on this one, but maybe somewhere in here so it doesn't feel like a black hole behind him. So really you've just got that full flexibility. Here's a beautiful image by KT Mary. I'm just going to roll through these just to keep this video from being too long. I've got a lot of images, so I want to show you a lot of things. Same thing. Let's start with skin retouch. There we go. Oh, we forgot to run the preset. Look at me. There we go. And I'll go ahead and turn this off real quick. There So we'll start there. I went backwards. So we'll pop it over here. Here's our preset. So we're going to do, I'll get into a creative on this one as well. Skin retouch. Let's go ahead and bring out the lip a little too deep there. I'm actually going to deepen her skin a little. Just because when we lighten it, sometimes the skin can get a little too washed out. This gives us a little of that depth back. You can see it looks beautiful. Let's go ahead and okay, and then let's go ahead and brighten up these eyes a little. Even though she's got deep eyes, you can still see it brought in some of that highlight in the irises, which is really good. I am going to do hair deepen on her just to darken up because I feel like it got lost in that. Let's go ahead and darken background as well, just to give us a little more color depth in that background there. I am gonna, let me see, let me check skin glow versus subject lighten. Yeah, I think I like just the skin glow. Just adds that nice little bit of glow there. But that looks gorgeous. You can see, let me go and zoom in a little more on this. Too much. There you go. You can see the comparison there. Again, still very natural. You can still see the texture in her skin. It's just not as prominent. Now let's look at a couple of the creative tools because we haven't touched on these much. So say I wanted to do a blush that just adds that nice kind of pink tone to it. We see that a lot in film. And so if you're missing that in your images, but you see it in your film images, you can use that one there. Cream just really brings out a tiny hint of that warmth in an image. It really helps if an image is feeling stark and kind of harsh. Adding that little bit of cream can really give you a little more of that film feel. Enrichen does just that. It just really kind of gives a little extra depth to the image. Faded dark does just that. It just fades it to give it a little bit of a vintage look. And again, you can adjust that as needed. Faded milk does a soft version. This image is not ideal on. I like this on beach images or an image that's super contrasty and you just really want to soften it and give it that little bit of an ethereal look. That works nice as well. Faded background only. We saw that on the newborn, but as you can see here, it does the same thing on a natural image. Old film does just that. It just gives it a bit of an old film look. You can see it adds in grain. It lifts the black point and just kind of gives it a little bit of that vintage look. I'll show you another image that works really, really well on. Not ideal for this. I don't think I'd go old film on an image like this. And of course, old film black and white, I will show you in a little bit. I do want to pop this over. I'm going to go back to the original image with the preset here real quick and show you all in one. And there you go. That was one click. That did the skin, the lips, the eyes, the brows, the hair. And you can go in here and adjust each of those individually. You see it does the whites on the eyes, the irises, the lips, the teeth, which there weren't any teeth showing, eyebrows, facial hair, skin glow. So facial hair is great for men if their beards and stuff get a little too light. Say eyebrows, I feel like those got a little dark. So I'm just going to go in right here and I can tweak the eyebrows down even when I run the all-in-one. And you can adjust it. It's got skin glow, skin smooth. So one click, I really just gave her like a little, basically like a face tuning essentially. She doesn't need it, but sometimes you have clients that like that extra processing. Gorgeous beach image by Jean Laverne. Let's go ahead and add the preset. I'm going to actually bring this down a little and give it a tiny bit of warmth. So there's our starting base. I'm going to run blush on this because I think it looks amazing on these beach photos. It really gives that kind of cotton candy beach vibe that we feel sometimes when the sunset gets really pretty. Let's go ahead and scroll down to our skies. Let's look at candy. And you can see how that really gave exactly what I wanted out of this preset. It just gives you that cotton candy, beautiful sun, residual sunset feeling of a beach image. And it just brought out those pinks and brought out the little bit of deep blues in there. For the subject, we could lighten them a little if we wanted to, and that's too much. So we use our slider to adjust somewhere in there, and that looks gorgeous. This is an image that we could try milk on. So we do this, and you can see how it just gives it that little bit of that soft ethereal feel. Really helps if it's super high contrast. You're really just trying to create that really beautiful ethereal feeling. There you go. Another KT Mary image. So here's a great one where we have two white balances. We have a very warm, neutral background, and then she's in, KT shoots with scrims a lot, so she's inside of a shade scrim. So she's leaning on the cool side. So this would be a great one to try that with as well. So same thing, run our preset, lift the exposure a little bit. I'm going to pop that over here. So let's just go ahead and start with warming her up. So we're going to go to subject warm. And you can see how that immediately got her into the same white balance as the background. So we can adjust that a little if needed, if you feel like she's a little too warm, but it really cut down some of that. And we're going to do subject lighten as well. Again, a little too much for this. It's not a harsh backlit, so somewhere in here. Hair lighten, because her hair I feel like is feeling a little black hole-ish and maybe even a little blue. So let's lighten that hair. There we go. Now we can see some texture in her hair. And now let's remove the blue. And you can see that immediately cut those blue tones out in these highlights. Let's see here. We could do skin glow. See, that just immediately brought out some highlights in her arms. And there you go. I mean, that actually looks really, really pretty. Not a lot else that I would do with this particular image. Another image by Amy Huang. Run the preset. You can see the color cast from the vines above her. So we're going to see the white balance here is great. White balance here is great. White balance on her arms is great. It's just right here that it's not feeling very good. So I'm going to leave it as is, and we're going to go into, let's try yellow skin cast first, see what that does for us. And see how they just pinked it up a little bit. It just gave a little more of a natural pink tone versus this yellow tone. Still not overly processed. And I'm going to take it out. Let's just compare it to green real quick. I'm curious which one works better. That one leaned a little too orange. So I think, oh, going back, went too far. So I like the yellow skin cast on this. And I am going to pump it up a little. And then I'm going to give her a skin retouch. We're going to soften it a hair. We're going to do skin glow. And we're going to soften it a hair. And then I think I'm going to cool subject a little bit, just a smidge. I feel like she's still leaning, there we go. She was still leaning a little warm, so that helps cut a little of that out. So right in there. Let's go ahead and do clean white, see if that gets rid of some of this blue in here. A little bit, a lot of it's just color coming through it, so that cut a little of that. Did I do glow? I did do, oh, there we go. Glow. And that helps lighten her up. Let's go ahead and do the eyes. I'm going to turn those down a little. We have some color in her hair. Again, this is reflective. I don't mind it. It doesn't bother me. Some people it bothers. So let's just show you for the sake of the video. We're going to do hair blue, and that cuts that blue out of there as well. So you can see both images are gorgeous, but this really brought out her natural skin tones and gave her a little more of a delicate feel. We could lighten the background a little on this as well. And we're going to turn that down, maybe somewhere in here. Maybe cool it down a little. Let's do that. Oh, yeah, I like that. Okay, so cooling it down helped bring out that kind of dingy yellow green tone as well. So that looks really pretty. Another Amy Huang image. I love this image so much. I'm gonna lift. So right there, again, just the preset alone, it does not need a lot. I edit like this. I don't do a lot, but when you are doing albums or, like I said, things going on the walls and you need to do those finessing, or you're shooting for a magazine or it's going to get published, you got to do these extra steps, or just high profile clients really like a lot of the extra touch. So these are great for fixing error things or just enhancing an image to the next level. So same thing. I think everything here is looking great. So let's just go ahead and look at our features. I love this cropped in too with the horse's face. Oh my gosh. Okay, let's just run the all-in-one real quick and see what happens. Beautiful. And you can actually just tone that down. So maybe you felt like, okay, that's a little too much. This is where we started. I want a little of this, but I don't want too much. You could go somewhere in there. Or if you do like a lot, you could do that, and then you can adjust things down as needed individually here. So that's the all-in-one, and that looks great. I'm going to go and pull that out so we can just take a look at how each of these look up close, because this is, you see how that immediately, just eyes rich, immediately brought out her eyes. The whites, a little too white on this one because they really didn't need the help. Skin retouch. She doesn't need a lot because I want to make sure those freckles do show through. So I'm only going to do a little bit of that. And then if we've got a warm background here, if we felt like we wanted to cool that down, we could. Oh, hit the wrong one. There we go. And that just tones down the background warmth a little bit. And that actually looks really nice. And you could even warm up the subject a little. And I would maybe turn it down just a hair. And then maybe we want to bring out the sky a little bit. And that gives us a little more sky color, just so we have some color there instead of falling into white. And that looks stunning. All right, this is by Leah Black. And run the preset. Again, the preset looks great. Really don't need a lot of adjustments there. I want to do the old film on this one. So we're going to do old film. And I'm going to warm it up. There we go. I'm actually going to tone this down a little. So there's just warm film. Or I warmed it up in old film. But you can see how that really just gave it a little more of that vintage vibe on top of the regular preset. So you can basically double up your preset collection by having this, because you have your main presets and then sometimes you want a little more of that film look but you don't have a film collection. This gives you the option to adjust that, and again, this is adjustable as well, so you can do as little or as lot as you would like on that as well. Let's just say we wanted to cool down this grass, so we're going to go down to greens cool, and immediately I can change it from cool greens, or I can go warm greens and warm them up even more. So for those that like those really warm greens, or your greens for some reason are very cold, it's a great tool to have as well. Let's do a little bit of sky. I'm just playing with these so you guys can see how it all works. You can see that recover, those might be a little aggressive, so we'll kind of go somewhere in there so we don't feel like we have these blowing out areas, but it's a little softer as well. Beautiful image by Amy Huang again. Run the preset again, doesn't need a ton. This is one where it was a tiny bit soft, not a lot. I honestly like it the way it is because I feel like it feels like film, but for the sake of showing things off, let's do subject dehaze, and you can see how that immediately just crisped things up a little bit and gave us a little bit more detail and contrast inside the subject. So that's a great tool there as well. I'm going to cool her down just a little bit. See, that's just very slight. There we go. And then I would probably add a little contrast in this, just overall for the image. There we go. Yeah, I like that. There we go. I'm not sure if we can recover any of the sky, but we might want to try to recover a little bit of tone. Yeah, that's good. So that just gives us a little tone. So it's not almost white on white. It just gives us a touch of tone. Might be able to even bring in a little more. There we go. We don't want it gray because sometimes it can lean gray, but we want to get in there so it gives us a little bit of depth there as well. I think that looks beautiful. Here's a dual white balance image. So we've got very warm background, very cold foreground, and this is Leah Black as well. So we're going to warm up for the subject. I always start with the subject and skin, and then I can adjust everything else from there. And then I'm going to do background cool to kind of tone that down in the background. Let me see. Yeah. Background cool. And again, you can adjust that. I'm going to lift the subject, lighten a little bit, not that much. Let's see, somewhere right in there. That looks really good. And see, that really brought in their white balance to the background. They look like they're in the same white balance without actually being in the same white balance. Let's go ahead and see if we can recover these guys a little. There's not a lot of information there, but we were able to recover some, so that's good. It's better than it being all whites. I do feel like they can be a little warmer, so not that much. Maybe right in there. There we go. That looks beautiful. Newborn. Let's go ahead and crop this in. And this is Danielle Hobbs. It doesn't want to, okay, there we go. A little overexposed, so we're going to bring it down just a smidge. And let's go ahead and warm it up a tiny bit. So we're going to start here. And then we're going to run the new preset. And we're going to pop that over here. We're going to run faded milk, background only. You can see how that helps soften out those wrinkles a little bit, cuts back those shadows a little, and really gives that kind of soft baby feel. I always loved it when I photographed newborns. Let's do a little bit of skin retouch. I don't think we're going to need a lot here. And there we go. You can see the difference. It's subtle, but just finessed and refined. We could maybe touch on neon skin a little. We only have teeny tiny bits, so let's just do a little bit of that, see? And it just reduces that tiny bit of red there. And then these reds that can pop up in these areas, especially on newborns. I could warm up, let's do subject warm a little. Just warm up the baby a little more. I feel like he's leaning a little cold. There we go. That looks beautiful. All right. Neon. Another Danielle Hobbs, beautiful image, obviously full sun and summer grains, so they're just very warm and summery. The preset cuts back a lot just because it already has its natural shifts in it, so I'm going to start there. I am going to go ahead and run neon greens on this as well, which will just soften it a little more, really soften these yellows back here. You can see all those really bright edges. And again, you can push that as hard as you want. I don't think I'd go there. I want it to look realistic, so I'm going to leave it. Here's our neons. These are the neon skin tones that I'm talking about. So sometimes it's ears. Here it's her little hands. So we're going to go to skin, neon skin. And look at that. It just, they're still there. You can still tell the sun is hitting them. They're just not distracting. You know, they're not in your face, and you can adjust it from there. So you can really still see you have that tone, which is natural. Our eyes are used to seeing those colors, but sometimes you don't want them to look like little glowing orbs in her hands. You just want to soften it up a little, and this gives you that option to do so. I'm going to go ahead and warm her up a little because she is backlit, so she's a little in the shadow side here, and just adding some warmth really helps tie her into the rest of the background. I think I'm actually going to darken the background a bit too. Not that much. I want it to look, yeah, somewhere in there. So that just kind of really, it felt a little washed here, so that really lightens that up a little. And then we can lighten her somewhere in here. You can see how quick these adjust. Let's just play with cool greens real quick. There's cool, and again, fully adjustable. Let's do minty. You see that just saturates them quite a bit, so you can really do that if you guys like those minty greens. I know some of you out there do, but that looks beautiful. Image by KT Mary. Again, we're going to add some warmth. Cut the magenta just a smidge. Run the preset. She just doesn't need a lot. I mean, this is obviously a model. It looks gorgeous. Let's do skin retouch just to soften things out a little bit. And then glow just gives that nice little highlight, a little bit of luminosity. I'm going to deepen her hair. Just a little. Let's go ahead and see. This is where her lips, I feel like, get a little washed out. So maybe we can add in a little extra richness in her lip right there. Brings it out. Facial hair, I think we can deepen that. Got a little lost in the light over here. So that will do the brows and the eyelashes. That looks absolutely gorgeous. Here's an Amy Huang image. There we go. You're gonna like this one. Let's see here. So we got a lot we can do to this one. So first I want to darken the background. Let's start with that, because I feel like it's just a little too bright and, you know, light. You see how much light is coming here. We're gonna also recover that a little bit. So that helps soften that up a little. You know what? Let me undo both of those real quick and pop this up here so we can compare. My bad. Darken, and again, I'll tone it down just a little. Highlight, recover. That's good. That just did the background. And then we have his suit, which is leaning a little blue. We have color coming in here. You can see it hitting him. So let's do the clean blacks. Look at that. It just immediately cuts that blue out, but keeps those nice and rich. And then she's got a bunch of blue highlights in her dress. Some of these dresses, if they're pure white, can really lean into that blue. So we're going to clean that up as well. And look at that. It just immediately cuts the blue tones out. And like I said, if you want to find that balance between the two, have a little bit of that, just because it feels authentic, you can leave it in or you can pull it out as you wish. Let's see here. What do we got? Let's do blue hair. Right here, cuts those blue highlights out of their hair. I'm going to do skin glow. If I wanted to do skin deepen, we saw that on the image. I could do it here. Maybe they got a little too blown out. You could do that as well. Yeah, that looks really good. There's not a lot else I'd do to that. Just another portrait. This is by Leah Black. Run the preset. Lift. Gorgeous. Really doesn't need a whole lot. I just want to show you the capabilities. Let's look at old film. There we go. This one might be a pretty one for cream. You see it just gives that kind of like antique cream tone. Again, you can push it, pull it back. It's very subtle, but it really does cut out kind of those blue cast tones that you can get in images sometimes. Faded dark does just that. Just kind of gives you a little bit of that kind of clipped black point. Skin glow, I think I would just do skin glow on this just to bring her out a little bit. Let's cool down the background. Let's just cool the greens. There we go. And then you can see that really cooled down these greens in here, gave a little more of that film look. Blue and the whites, we can clean that up if we want to. You see that just makes it perfectly, cuts that blue tone out. That looks gorgeous. Another Danielle Hobbs. Run the preset. I'm going to pull out a little bit of this warmth. And then let's just run the all-in-one real quick. And that ran everything. And just one click, that ran your basic portraits, the eyes, the skin. You can see how you can still see her beautiful maternity line, but it just softened that belly up, softened her chest up. You just got a little bit of blotching here, help soften that up. So it still looks like her, but it's just not quite as contrasted there. Same thing with the skin. Lips look good, eyes look good. We could lighten this hair just a tiny bit. I would turn this down so you can see. I just want to see a little bit of detail in here. Let's try background warm. Let's see if that works on this. Because I feel like we've got some cold tones in here and she's very warm because of her skin tone. That helps neutralize that a little bit. And I would maybe even do background faded. Oh, no, wrong one. There we go. And that helps also soften things up a little bit. But that looks gorgeous. Let's see here. Warm it up. There we go. You see the preset pulls a lot of magenta out, so we don't have to do that on this. So I'm going to go here. Let's do faded milk. So say this was an image, see, you can see where that really works nice on these beach images and really just gives that soft, low contrast, really cuts down those sharper edges, and softens the image up quite a bit. Let's go to Candy Skies. See what we can get out of that. I think I'm going to find a happy medium where I want a little of that pink tone, but I don't want a ton. Subject lighten, a little too much, so somewhere in here. But that looks beautiful. So very soft and ethereal. Great for these white beaches, for those of you that shoot down at Alice Beach. Let's go ahead and do this one. Katie Mary. Pop over here. Coming soon. Pop it over here. Let's bring it down just a little bit. There we go. This is one where I want to deepen the skin tones. And that's too much. Somewhere in here. I feel like they need to be cooled down a little. Yeah, there we go. So somewhere in there. Skin retouch. Skin glow. Skin glow is really nice for backlit images that can sometimes feel a little flat, and it really helps that. Deepen hair. I actually really like that. We can do enrichen just to show you. See how the whole image just got a little deeper. For those of you R series shooters, for the Canon R series, images can be a little flat, a little dull. That enrichen really helps with those, and just brings them to life, just adds a little extra oomph to them. That looks great. So we could also darken background. And that looks good. That really brings that. It looks a little more magazine. So you can see all of this back there. Looks gorgeous. I just want to show you on other skin tones. This is another one where I feel like you see all the green we have here. Normally we would add a little of this, maybe a little of that. So yeah, I would do somewhere in there is how I would run this preset. And then I'm going to do the yellow skin cast just to bring in some reds. Maybe too much there. Deepen the hair. I actually really like that. Let's give her a little glow. Perfect. Yeah, that looks beautiful. Where are we at? There we go. Another Leah Black. Go here. Warm. And again, I can pretty much stop here. I'm going to run old film, and I'm actually going to do black and white for you on this one as well. So see the difference? There's the preset, and there's with old film, and it just gives you that slight grain, clipped black point, a little bit of color shifts, but it just gives you a little bit of that vintage feel. Let's do this one in black and white as well. So I can show you the old film black and white. So we go here. This is where I need to get, let's go to KT. Say we ran this one. There we go. And there you go. And that gives you a black and white vintagey film look. Looks gorgeous. And again, fully adjustable, so you can do a little or a lot, but that really adds that nice little vintage film to a preset you already have, which is good. Kind of doubles up your collection. Another Amy Wang. I'm going to pull back contrast a little on this one. I apologize in advance for my voice. I've been getting over being sick, and I was hoping to be better by now, but it's not. Let's see here. So we've got that. We ran, yeah, I didn't do that. Ran the preset. Let's do clean whites. That's going to clean up his shirt. And these whites here, look at the difference. So we had these kind of blue casts coming in here, heavy blue in his shirt, still looks authentic. Don't really feel like we need clean blacks, but we could. And that'll just cut any blue tones in his blacks that you would like. I would actually kind of leave this, maybe lighten the background a little. And not that much. So maybe somewhere in here. Yeah, that's better. So it doesn't feel like a little black hole back there. And that looks really good. We could maybe do subject, lighten just a smidge. And there we go. I would maybe leave that there. Here's another Leah black. Here's a nice dual white balance. We have full sun in the back. We have full shade here in the front. So like I said, I like to edit for, I find a happy medium on white balance and exposure, but I generally do white balance for skin tones because to me they're the most important. So I'm going to start there, add in the preset. I can lower the exposure a little, make sure my white balance is where I want it. That looks good. All right, so here's starting with just the preset. So first thing I'm gonna do, let me just work with the background real quick. So first thing I want to do is darken the background, cut through a little bit of this light. I'm also going to cool it down. And again, turning that down to where I don't want it to look fake green, but I want it to look like it is full sun, but I want it to be a little closer to their tones as well. I'm going to do subject lighten just to bring them up a little bit. And I think we can actually warm them up a tiny bit. There we go. Let's go ahead and do skin glow. There we go. That really, see, that immediately adds some dimension to this. Let's do subject color. I want to pop these blues on their dresses a little bit. See how it immediately brought out the color in their skin and the hair and the dresses. Honestly, I could stop there. Let me show you, say I want to do blush on this. That's what blush would look like. Cream. And we don't need to do enriched. If you wanted to do a little bit of a faded look, milk, I would soften it a little. So if you want kind of that soft ethereal feel, it gives you that beautiful edit. So let me pop this over here. So this is our edit. So if we do milk and just turn it down a little, it just softens all of those edges up and really kind of gives it a very soft ethereal look. It's really great, great tool. Old film. See, it gives it a little more of that vintagey film look. Looks really good. Another Leah black. Run the preset. Again, gorgeous photography, well shot, good white balance. We don't always have that, but when you have it, it's pretty much one click if you've got a good preset. But that looks really good. There's not a lot I would do with this. You could keep it warm like this. I think I like the greens just a little cooler, so I'm going to go somewhere in there. I'm going to lighten the subjects up a little on this. Again, starting at 0 and then working it up, so that just helps that a little. Because we had to lighten him, she got a little light, so I'm just going to darken hair. I feel like her hair is, there we go. I feel like her hair was feeling a little dark. So there's that. And then this one I really like in old film. I feel like it really gives that vibe. You see how it just works really well in this image. It just cut those black points. You see it does color shift just slightly, not a lot, but a little bit in the shadow tones. But that looks gorgeous. It even helped recover some of the sky up here as well. Getting towards the end, everybody. I know it's a lot of images, but I really want to show how they work on a variety of images, so feel free to skip through these videos. Another dual white balance. I think I'm going to keep that there. I'm going to lighten her up. There we go. And then I'm going to warm her. I like the background the way it is, so subject warm. There we go. That helps. That immediately feels like we're in the same white balance as here. Let's do white, clean whites. Just cuts a little of this. See, there's blue that's all in here. Just cuts a little of that out. I think I want to leave a little in though, so there we go. Skin glow, lip rich. Let's see here. Yeah, there's really not a lot I would do on this one. It's gorgeous. I think that looks good. It's just enough to enhance it. It's really brought her to life and then brought some color into her. Look how gray her face looked there. This is a fun one. This is an Amy Wang, heavy backlight, but great exposure on the back. Like I want this very editorial, so I don't want to change the background at all. So I'm going to leave it like this because I feel like this is perfectly exposed. She's falling into shadows. Gorgeous though. The lighting here is impeccable. So this is where that subject lighten is really going to come into play. That's too much. You want it to feel natural. So you want some of that depth because we got great depth in these rocks here. So when we do it at 100%, it almost looks a little washed. So we want it somewhere in here. And then we're so what we're going to want to do is just enhance her and make her glow. So if we use Skin Glow, that immediately is going to make her skin features pop and then increases that visual depth to the image. Would I do anything else to this? Let's go ahead and enrich in the whole. Let me try enriching on the whole thing. Somewhere in there. That looks beautiful. Other things you could do to this, so say we wanted to do old film, that looks really cool as well. And what you can do is if it felt like it got too dark, you can actually do that. I mean, look at that. That actually looks very editorial. That looks really pretty. It gives you a whole nother look that you can go for. And let's go ahead and take that off. Cream, you can see how it just warms it up and gives it a little bit of that. Who's shooting like this? Like Zara shoots like this. I think some of the J. Crews recently have had this kind of warm, creamy tone to them. So it's a good way to kind of get those editorial vibes. Milk is not quite right. Well, actually, it does soften that up a little bit. So if you want to kind of just blend everything together, you can use milk. Dark, we could use dark. I feel like she gets a little lost in there, but right there it looks kind of nice as well. You really just can do so much with this and make it your very own. Here's another Danielle Hobbs. We got some dual white balances here, pink skin. So we're gonna pop this over. Let's go ahead and run the preset, lift where we want to lift, and pop it over. So this is one where I'm gonna turn down the exposure or the white balance just a tiny bit. I'm going to go background cool, but I'm going to turn it down a little because I want some of those yellow greens coming through, but I wanted it a little cooler. I'm going to warm up the subject just a smidge. We have a lot of competing white balances here. I'm going to zoom in and I'm going to do less red. And see, her cheeks are still pink, her lips are still pink. Her ear is still pink, but it's just toned down a little. And you can really push that as much as you want. But I don't want to cut too much from Mom, but it did help cut some of this brick. I think it's brick, yep, reflecting up on her. So it actually helped cut a little of that out as well. So that really helps that there. Let's do Skin Glow. Just bring out a little bit of that highlight in the skin. Clean whites. See how that immediately cut the blues, you know, out of this area in here. But that looks really pretty. All right, this one is also Danielle Hobbs. I'm going to warm it. I picked this one for the dehaze. So let's go ahead and do this. We're going to lower that, and we're going to increase that. And we're going to increase that. So get our white balance and everything. So now we're set. So let's do subject dehaze. And so that immediately sharpens the Mom. So you could stop there and do Skin Glow And then you could also do background dehaze. And see that how much that cut through that softness. You want some of it, so I would maybe do something like this. I'm going to do subject lighten as well. And that's a little too much, so maybe right in there. And then now she feels like she's almost spotlit in the middle of this environment. We deepened up the background a little with the dehaze, and we crisped her up quite a bit as well, and warmed her up, and brought a little bit of highlight in there. Let's say we wanted to cool down some of these tones a little. You can see how that it immediately cools down those greens and makes it look a little less like flat beige, and just livened up the colors a bit. But that looks really pretty. We got another newborn, Danielle Hobbs. I'm going to turn this down a little. I'm going to warm him up a little, or her. Can't quite tell. There we go. So let's go ahead and there we go. Let's pop this over. So that's our edit. Here's our neons. So we're going to start with that because that's the first thing that my eyes saw. Skin neon. So we're going to turn that down. Look at that. Immediately cuts that neon out. We're going to skin retouch. I don't want too much. Let's do faded background. Immediately softens that background there. I think everything else looks really good. We could try glow. That helps because it felt like it was feeling a little flat. So the glow actually brought in a little bit of that highlight on the baby skin. But that looks beautiful. Another Amy Wang. Let's see what auto does. Okay, just pull out a little of that green and yellow that's in there. There we go. There's with the preset. Eyes rich. I definitely want to bring up these lips just a little. We could do hair deepen, just so it doesn't feel as washed. Let's try skin deepen on her. I know she's fair, but everything's just very washed. Okay, that's a little too much. There we go. Somewhere there, just to bring a little bit of color in there, just because I think we're going for an ethereal feel here. But it shows you how you can, on very fair skin, can bring in a little of the extra tone as needed. So I don't want to bring in too much on her. I think somewhere in there looks really good. Did we do touch? I don't think we did retouch, did we? No, not yet. There we go. So somewhere in there. And look at that. Look how it immediately brightened up her eyes. And you can adjust those. So we can go here and click on the eyes. It would be this one. Yep. And then just adjust that down or up. You can see how the irises is changing. And so you want it somewhere in there. That looks gorgeous. And then we could cool down the greens in the background. They're feeling a little yellow. And immediately look how that changes the overall vibe of the image. It just felt a little less dingy and yellow. There we go. And then last image, another Danielle Hobbs. And then last image, another Danielle Hobbs. And I pulled this one because of the neons, so you guys could see that and the adjustments. So I'm going to pop this over here. And we're going to immediately take care of that neon skin in the baby's ear. And see how that just toned it down so nicely, but still looks natural. Skin retouch. And you can see how you can still see the baby hairs. You can still see the folds and the crinkles in the skin, and even a little bit of depth, but it just softens it up. And again, you can adjust that to taste. I don't recommend plastic babies but some babies need a little more than others. It really just depends on how you're shooting, your aperture, etc. But you can see that really does soften things up. I'm going to try less red on this as well because I think it might soften those reds up a little. It really did. So I would find a balance there because I want a little bit of that natural red. But that looks really good. See how that just immediately cut back those bright pinks without having to use a brush and hand paint those areas. It really did bring in the image, and we could even pull this down a little there, and that looks gorgeous. But that is a look at the and that's a look at the refined AI toolbox and all of the masking tools. I hope you guys enjoy this collection. I think it's a nice finishing collection to have, a good toolbox. You're not going to have to do this on every image, but when you have images that just need a little extra something and you don't want to spend extra time making your own mask, tweaking all the sliders, we've done that work for you where we created all these masks, hand tweak the sliders to fit the refined aesthetic, and give them to you guys to enhance your images and refine them to the next level. Thank you for watching. I know this was a long video. I hope it really gave you a good deep dive on this collection. And be sure to like and subscribe. We would love to have you as part of our community and join our Facebook group as well. Thank you very much.